This video is sponsored by DistroKid. Follow the VIP link in the description down below to get 7% off an already amazing price to distribute your music to the world. Hi folks, I'm Mike and I hope you're well. We've seen XSampler in Cakewalk next, but it's new to Cakewalk Sonar in the latest version. So I thought we'd dive in and take a look. So here in a blank project, I've got my browser open on the right hand side. If you can't see yours, just press B on your keyboard. That opens and shuts the browser. And with that open, I'm going across to the insert virtual instrument icon here. I'll click on that and then I'll go down and open the Cakewalk folder, and there I can see the XSampler virtual instrument. I'll just double click on that and then this dialog box opens. Just make sure you're going to open this as a simple instrument track. I'll click on OK and it appears at the bottom of the screen. Now there's not much to see at the moment because there's no sample in there. To load it up with a sample, you can do it in two different ways. The first way is within the instrument itself. On the left hand side, you can click on this browse folder and then you can just select a sample from your Windows folder. Now this is a little bit tricky to use because if you've got a whole list of samples like I have here, it can be difficult to tell which one is which. So I reckon the preferable method, and I'll cancel this, is to again go to your browser on the right hand side, click on the folder icon, and that brings up this media browser, and you can navigate to wherever your samples are on your system. And the advantage to using this is you can actually preview the sample files here. Now before I do that, I just want to show you some of my settings that make things a little bit easier. If we go to the top where it says media, click on the down arrow there, you can see some options. I recommend switching off loop preview. Why? Because if you preview something like a kick or a snare, it's going to play kind of like a machine gun if it's looped, which is not very much fun to listen to, if I'm honest with you. The other thing that you can do is control the volume of these previews. If you go to your console, I'm going to press Alt 2 on my keyboard to bring up the console. By default, you may have noticed this before, there's a bus here which is the preview bus, and you can control the volume of your previews here using this fader. Okay, so I'll go back to XSampler by clicking on its little tab down here, and then I can preview some of these files over here. So I'm just going to click on one. That's a hi-hat, snare, sorry, it's a kick and the snare, and few beats and things there. If one's playing and you want to stop it, just click on the play button if you want to stop it. So I'm actually going to go ahead and choose a 4-bar little beat here. That's this one. Have a preview. Cool, like that one. And I'm just going to grab it and drag it into XSampler. So that's the basics of how you're going to load your samples in. I know that seemed a little long-winded, but once it's set up, it's probably the easiest way to do it. Now, if I play a note on my piano keyboard, I can actually hear the sample. So, and if I play it softly, it will be soft. And if I play it hard, it'll be loud. Simple, huh? So what else can we do? There's a couple of very basic ways that you can manipulate your sample. I'll just draw your attention to them now. If we go to this little sort of drop down icon here, this opens up the process audio menu. If we click on that, you can see that we've got a normalize sample option here. So you could click on that. I think this sample is loud enough already, but if you've got a pretty quiet sample and you want to make it as loud as it can go without actually clipping, then I'd recommend you click on this normalize sample. And then we've got reverse sample. If we click on that, you can see that it reverses my sample. And if I play it, it sounds like this. Fun, eh? There's 3 different basic ways of playing this sample, or 3 different sort of play modes, and you can see icons for them here. Gate, we've got loop, and we've got one shot. Let's start off with the first one, which is gate. Take note of when I press a note on the keyboard, you'll see it turn yellow. Let's do that now. And take note of when I lift my finger off the keyboard. Okay, let's see what happens again. So as long as I've got the note pressed down on my keyboard, it plays the sample. But as soon as I lift my finger off, it stops playing the sample. When I press it again, it goes back to the beginning. So that is the gate mode. Now we can determine where the beginning and end is with these little gray handles that we can see in the bottom left and right hand sides. I'm just going to grab the left hand one and drag it in, say over here like so. Let's drag it there. I'll grab the right hand one and drag it across to here. So the blue blue area that we can see now is the area that's going to play. So let me just press a key on the keyboard. Okay, and you can see it just stopped there. Okay, even though I had my finger on the keyboard still, it just stopped. Okay, so that's how that works. Let's move on to the loop mode. I'll press the icon here and you can see this blue area appears here. So let's drag the handles for this blue area, which are at the top, to say somewhere inside our main play area here, like so. We'll just pop it like that there. Now let's play a note on the keyboard and see what happens. So it started off where the grey handles determine the beginning position of the sample, but once it got into this loop, as long as I hold my key down on my keyboard, it's just going to keep going around that loop. Let's try it again. Now, it's easy to miss another little feature of loop where if we just drag this out here, you can see there's another little handle down here. Okay, this is, I'm just going to drag the end out. This is the crossfade handle. Okay, so you can see that it's active when you've got this little hand symbol. And if we take that and drag it, we can create these little crossfades at the beginning and the end of the loop. It just makes it loop a little bit more smoothly. Let's try that. So that's the loop mode. Now let's go to the final one, which is one shot. I'll click on that. And as I press my key on the keyboard, I'm going to lift it up again right away. Let's see what happens. Did you see that? Have a look again at the yellow key as I press it down. So even though I lifted my finger off of the key, it continued to play this sample until the end of the designated area that we've sort of marked out there. Now, if I press the same key again, it does go back to the beginning, but it will finish off that play area no matter what we do. Now, the other thing that will happen is we press another key on the keyboard. It won't go back to the beginning again. It will now start playing another sample, one on top of the other. Let's try that out. You can see it only goes back to the beginning if you play the same key again. We do have some more advanced controls that we can get to if we click on this little icon here and they appear at the bottom. Now I'm going to deal with the most obvious ones first before we dive into the more complex ones. So very obviously in the mix section, the gain control makes the whole instrument louder or quieter, and the pan control pans it left or right. We have a drop down here where we can select either drums, vocals, or music. Now in the documentation, it says that if we select these appropriately, it optimizes the processing of the samples here. So I haven't heard much difference as of yet, but I probably haven't tried a wide enough array of samples. I'm going to select drums here because I am processing drums. Now, at the bottom left-hand side, we also have the pitch controls. These are reasonably obvious. With the shift control, this is a sort of a macro control where we shift it in semitones at a time. Okay, so that's going to be big chunks. And then we have a fine-tuning control over here, a fine pitch control. Now, we're going to move on and talk about the time stretch section in a moment. But where it relates to pitch is pitch behaves a little bit differently depending on what you've got selected in time stretch. At the moment, I've got it on original, and as I change the actual pitch, although the pitch changes, the length of the sample doesn't change. It doesn't get any faster. It plays according to the tempo that we've got set. So I'll play the sample. And then this time I'm going to play it, but I'm going to adjust the pitch, and you'll hear the pitch change, but the timing won't. So the tempo is staying the same no matter what. You get some different behaviors when you have time stretch set to a different setting. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. So we can control the amplitude, or how loud the sample is, at different stages of playback using the amp envelope controls: attack, decay, sustain, release, and mono. Now, as I'm adjusting these controls, I want you to take note of the blue line that moves across the sample as it's being played. Let's take a look at that now. And you may have noticed that that blue line is at the full height of our display here. Take a look again. So it's indicating that it's playing the sample at full amplitude, okay? But as we adjust these controls, you'll see it gets kind of shorter, demonstrating that it's playing at a lower amplitude or kind of a lower volume. Now at the moment, the attack control is set to 0 milliseconds, meaning it takes 0 time to get to full amplitude. So when we press the key, the sample plays at full amplitude right away. But as we push this control up, and I'll just do that now, and I press the key, you saw there a gradual increase in amplitude until it gets to full amplitude. So that's the attack control. Now the decay and sustain controls kind of work together. I'm going to start off actually with the sustain control first. This sets a new level that the sample is going to be played at some time during its playback, lower than the full amplitude, okay? So at full, this is set to 0 dB, no change, but we can reduce it to a lower level by adjusting the sustain control. So I'm going to go a lot lower so we can obviously hear it, and I'm going to play the sample again. So you notice it started off at full amplitude, full volume, nice and loud, and then over some period of time it went to that new quiet level, which is determined by the sustain control. Now how long it takes to get to that new level is determined by the decay control. So if I push this up a little bit and then play the sample again, it takes a lot longer to get to that new level. Yeah, so that's the decay and sustain controls. Let's reset those by double clicking on both of those and then take a look at the release control. So release controls how long it takes for the sample to stop playing after we lift our finger off the key. It's set pretty short at the moment, so it seems like it's almost immediate. But if I push this up a little bit and then I change to my other view, so I'll turn off these controls so that you can see the piano keyboard, you'll see that I'll start to press the key and I'll lift it off, but the sample will keep going even after I've lifted my finger off the key. So how long that plays for after I lift my finger off the key is determined by the release control. Now I'm going to reset that so it's pretty short again and then move on to this mono control. So this controls how many notes we can kind of trigger at a time. So at the moment, if I play 3 or 4 notes quickly after one another, they'll all play at the same time. You can see them all moving past there. But if I switch this to mono and do the same thing again, you'll notice that kind of only one of them is playing at a time. Now, this may be not so obvious if you have the release control pushed up a little bit, because it's going to stop playing the current note as soon as you hit a new note, but it will honor the release control here. So it will appear as if you're in a polyphonic mode, yeah. But it's just that it's playing the kind of end of that note after the sample has been released, if you like. So that's the amp envelope controls. Now, before we take a look at filters and time stretching, I just wanted to remind you, if you want to release your music to platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, etc., check out our sponsor, DistroKid. If you follow the link in the description down below, you'll get 7% off your first year of membership. So in the filter section, we can apply 3 different types of filter, but I'm just going to demonstrate one of them here. You can explore the others yourself, but it's pretty interesting. If I select the low pass filter and I play the sample, I'm going to mess around with the cutoff and resonance controls here. And you can hear the kind of thing that you'll get out of that. Now, I think what is notable about these controls, and indeed the other controls in this plugin, is they are automatable. Is that a word? I think that's a new word. I'm going to say they're automatable. You can automate these controls, and I think that's where it gets pretty interesting. So yeah, That's the filters. I want you to take note of something called the root note. You can see the word root here and C3 next to it. And C3 is this blue note on the piano keyboard here. If I click on C3 here and drag up and down, I can change the value of the root note. Okay, it's important because it's sort of a starting point for how our sample behaves. When we play the sample on C3 at the moment, it's going to sound normal. Now, depending on our time stretch modes that we'll look at in a moment, the behavior will change as we play notes either below or above the root note. So let's go back to our advanced settings and look at our time stretch mode at the moment. It's been set to original all the way through this tutorial so far. Now, when we have it set to original, the sample is going to be played at its normal speed no matter what note we play, whether it's the root note or notes below and above the root note. The pitch may change, but not the timing of the sample. So let's play our root note. It sounds like this. Let's play the C below it. Okay, the pitch has changed, but the speed is the same. And let's play the C above it. Again, the pitch has changed, but the speed is the same. So that's how the original time stretch mode behaves. If we switch this to none and I play my root note, again, we get normal playback. But if I play a much lower note, not only has the pitch changed, but also the speed of playback is changing. I'll play a higher note. So that's how it's behaving when we have this set to none. So let's set this actually to 4 bars. So that means that when we play each note, the sample is going to be stretched across 4 bars in our DAW. So it doesn't matter what note we played, it's always going to be that long. The pitch may change, but not the speed, yeah? So you heard just the pitch changing there. So the sample is being stretched over 4 bars. So of course, if we change the tempo of our actual project, so it's on 100 at the moment, if I change this to something drastic like 50 and play my root note again, it's going to sound quite different. You can hear a much different tempo there. So that's how we can change the behavior of our time stretching. Now at the moment, you can only load 1 sample at a time into XSampler. Let's say you had several instances, one with a kick drum, one with a snare, one with a hi-hat. You may be wondering how you can play them all as one cohesive kit. Well, I do have a solution for that. If you'd like me to tell you about it in another video, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video.